Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to host another online webinar with two wonderful people who I had the honor to invite to join us for the online webinars as part of our PPM Summer Talks conference. So hello, there's Mark Christopoulos and Sachin Racket joining us. Hello. They're
Hi.
waving. I will give them the word as soon as I finish rambling about why we're here.
No worries.
I can see that there are many familiar names here with us today, so welcome. It's really my honor on behalf of Y Summits to welcome everyone here. Everyone is eager to listen to these two professionals and gentlemen speak about their keynote for today. Why we're here, PPM Summer Talks, a very new concept of a bit of a different conference, 5-week-long conference with one online webinar a day. It's something very new that we've put together to kind of make it very short and sweet as kind of a conference go, normally for 1 full day or 2 full days happening. And we just really wanted to bring something different to people. I know everyone is busy and everyone is kind of tired of virtual conferences and meetings and webinars. So, 1 hour, who doesn't have 1 hour to listen to some wonderful people? So as I said, we've got two lovely gentlemen who are with us today. So thank you again for accepting the invite. I will give you a few words. I'll give you a moment if you'd like to say hello to everyone.
Good day, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate us all coming together and chatting about what we're passionate about, program management, portfolio management, SRO management, and so glad to have you here. Go ahead, Sachin, I interrupted you.
Not at all. So I was going to pass it on to you anyway. So hi, everyone, and hello, Katie, hello, Mark, and the rest of you. It is delightful to be here, and really looking forward to chatting with Mark. Mark and I have interacted before, and it's always fun to even chat up with him. So I'm glad that he's here to share his experiences along with mine. So looking forward to chatting with you guys.
Thank you so much. Really, thank you so much. And I know that both of you will share something about yourself, but just a quick LinkedIn information, joking, for everyone. So we've got Sachin. He's a seasoned out-of-the-box thinker and problem solver with a solid record of delivering value to a number of companies in the life sciences, financial services, insurance, retail, manufacturing industries. Yes, I'm reading all of this. It's a mouthful. He runs a nonprofit organization called, if I pronounce it correctly, Snehalaya. Perfect. Right. Snehalaya Americas, that supports worth causes that improve the quality of life on the underprivileged. So that's something little that I wanted to share. He's a very passionate cook. He loves food. So that's why we connected. And he might publish a recipe book one day. So please keep your eyes peeled, everyone. Hopefully we can promote it on our PPM workout platform. And we've got Mark. He was one of our speakers here already at the PPM workout platform. We've got a great connection with him, and he actually is really kind enough to moderate a few sessions like this one, for example, leading to a panel discussion with Sachin. So we'll see how it goes. And we've got some very wonderful ideas into the future to work with Mark as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that as well. A little bit about Mark, if I may. He's a very passionate manager. He's got a passion for bringing data, criteria, and objectives to drive strategic decisions across disparate stakeholders for improved ROI. In a business environment with increasing threats of disruption and demands for innovation, he employs market-based, data-driven strategic frameworks which account for competitive risk and uncertainty to nurture ideas into nimble solutions for long-term profitability. Yes, I wrote this one down as well. Is there anything else, you professionals, that you'd like to add to that, or anything that you'd like to say that people might not know about you?
Well, Sachin, I know you've got a couple slides here to go over, and you've got a little bit of your background there. So I'll just give a little bit of my background, and then I'll hand it over to you if that works, Sachin.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Katie. Yeah, great introduction. So yeah, my passion is really about helping people make better decisions in the corporate investment market. I kind of grew up in a management consulting atmosphere. I grew up with Accenture running a number of different projects, then moved into programs, then moved into portfolios, and really got a interesting exposure to the evolution along those lines and the power that you can drive. Later in my career, as I got more and more into portfolio decision making and how did programs come to be, how did projects come to be, got very interested in understanding behavioral decision theory and how executives can be biased in their decision making. We all fall in love with our own ideas. We fall in love with things we're familiar with, and that really has kind of fueled a lot of the process transformations that I've put in place in my career. So with that's kind of my background, how I became a portfolio guy, and I'm really excited about today's discussion because it kind of shows the evolution as you go from project to program to portfolio to really strategic realization, which I think it should be the end goal. So with that, I hand it over to Sachin.
Thanks a lot, Mark. And it's a tough act to follow you, but I'm just going to try and go ahead anyway. So, as Katie, alluded to, 30 plus years, same management consulting background as well, and I have had the good privilege to set up and either set up or improve PMOs for about a dozen companies. So worked in a number of different settings, as Katie mentioned, not just pharmaceutical industry. So sometimes that little bit of breadth of information is what I will bring over here. Not quite focused exclusively on the pharmaceutical side of things. So those of you who are, you may find me, that's not exactly what I focus on. My focus is across the managing of the strategy realization offices and PMOs. I've been teaching for a number of years, taught more than 10,000 students so far. That's a number I like to throw out because it seems to impress somebody. I'm a musician as well, and that's one of the things I use to raise money for charity that Katie alluded to, the nonprofit that I have written a couple of books, and I live in New Jersey. The way I got into program and project management was by accident, if you will, because I had my own company which I was running, and when I moved into the US to start working over here, the question was what was fungible, what was something which I could transfer across, and project management was the only thing which I could really take across, and so sort of used that and then got opportunities that I did. So why don't I just sort of use that as a kicking point, Mark? We talked about sort of starting this off. So let me just set the stage up for what we're talking about today. Specifically focusing on. There's a small difference which I just wanted to point you to in terms of having it narrowly focused only on healthcare side. Just think of this as more sort of broader portfolio slash portfolio management slash strategy execution offices. I happen to lead the strategy realization office for a division in Merck, and the difference is this line from a friend of mine called John McGrath, who most of you probably know, who talks about the fact that an organization is incapable of delivering on its strategic objectives. If the strategy is effectively worthless if you can't do that, and the organization should accept that their North Star is based on nothing more than hope and chance. So strategy is the first thing that differentiates and the alignment of strategies, what differentiates a PMO and a strategy realization office. So just wanted to take a quick minute to sort of talk about how the PMO has evolved and how we kind of got here. Many of you are practitioners yourself, and you probably are aware of this, but life started from the project office as a way to sort of start consolidating how projects were managed together, so to provide a little bit more of consistency and maybe cut down some of the redundancy, and then became a system program office, and then became the program management office, the PMO. And PMOs also, as you all know, have a number of flavors which happen. So project management office, program management office, and all of them basically were largely focused on increasing levels of controls and efficiencies. So it was about how we take a project and make that project more efficient, make it less redundant, have dependencies to manage, issue and time and risk management and so forth. But it was all about the project and making the project successful, right? So projects and programs came from that side. So even within that, the kind of differences which you see between the PMOs is enormous, right? So you have departmental PMOs, you have enterprise PMOs, you have functional PMOs in some cases, and the function changes right from ordering the pizza and managing the conference onto to truly managing various projects and supporting various stuff. But there are different, as you see across the spectrum of companies, you see a wide range of functions and focus and maturity and scope of work that people work on. And coming on to this new world is this takeoff into the strategy realization office, and the focus there is sort of looking top down, right? So it's alignment with strategy, alignment with the goals, and oftentimes the word goals and function, goals and strategy are used interchangeably. Then they could not be further from each other, right? So goals are what you aspire to, and strategy is how you want to get there, right? So this is something which there are lots of companies where you have a lot of goals which are put over there and a lot of projects which are put over there, and somewhere along the line there's this gap which is there in the middle. So the PMO view of the world talks about projects and programs, where the programs are scope, deliverables, timelines, milestones, risks, issues, a usual kind of view of the world that you have in terms of projects and programs. And I'm just sort of setting the stage up, so bear with me, and then Mark and I will just start diving into this. But if you think about dashboards and templates and all of those things which we normally talk about, that's the project program management view of the world. The management view of the world is slightly different. They basically have a vision that they have, which they rally around. They have goals and metrics and stuff of that kind. And this is the management above the executive management level which you're talking about. And they talk about the strategies which are there to achieve the goals. And at some point, it is just get this thing done. It's just one of those things where, hey, PMO or hey, functional head or whatever, just get this done. And then the question is, often, is it done yet? So you have things like, you have dashboards that you share with them and stuff of that kind. So the whole world then evolves around making sure that the project that you set for ourselves is successful, or the program that you've got for yourself is successful. And the success is not really tied back and looked up into say, hey, is this aligned with the strategy at some point? But perhaps there's a starting point of it when it is set up. But beyond that, it starts becoming a downward looking thing. So the gap that I was just talking about is here, right? So you say the strategy execution part, where we said the execution management has one of the views of the world. And then there's the program management piece, which basically starts executing on the programs and projects and reports upwards to say how the progress has been, in answer to the question, are we there yet or is it done yet? That's where the thing is. And this is the gap that the SRO, the Strategy Realization Office, is trying to fill in. So you talk about how to facilitate strategic planning. You're not just sort of taking the strategy which has been provided and run with it, but also in some cases get into the phase of facilitating that strategy is something that strategy realization officers have started getting into. And then to sort of look at it from a perspective of what can be projectized and what is truly just an operational change in terms of improving something, making it better, being more operationally improved and stuff of that kind. So from there, defining the criteria for the projects and prioritizing this is a little different from the portfolio management view of the world. This is more of looking at it from the company's strategy and then taking that downwards. And then from there, carving out projects and programs where the focus is on benefits and outcomes. So this is the sort of the realm of the SRO that we're going to be talking about. And I'll take a pause here, Mark, and then we can sort of see how you want to take it. But I just wanted to sort of set the stage up for us to sort of see what's the sort of domain that we're going to be talking about today. Sorry.
Awesome. Thank you, Sachin. Yeah, great overview, and a great tee up to where we were hoping to kind of take this conversation today. So perhaps maybe I'll kind of start with the end in mind, and we can kind of move back from there. I love this slide because it kind of tees up the kind of nexus point that we talked about, is how it's easy to kind of put on a slide where you show you go from projects to programs to portfolios to achieving your strategy, and it was, I thought, very descriptive. But the devil's in the details, right? As with most things in life, is that how do you tie in really achieving your strategy to even getting it back to an individual project. And I think you had a great depiction when we've chatted about kind of the work that your SRO is doing. You are not accountable for example, your office isn't driven by bringing product to market. That's a kind of a different agenda. But you guys still, you're driven against a transformational agenda. But you still employ standard program and project techniques to bring your benefits to do the transformation, right? Your objectives are towards some pretty specific objectives, but your organization is kind of an example of how do you bring more traditional program techniques to achieve a transformational agenda, right? So I thought maybe you could kind of talk a little bit about that as to what are how did you kind of come up with the objectives, and then as you continue to execute, how do you demonstrate the value that your organization is doing by putting points on the board with the objectives that you're held accountable for, if that makes sense?
I think that's a great set of questions. So let me just sort of start off. So with about 4 years, slightly over 4 years ago, when Merck's Global Medical and Scientific Affairs, at the time was called Global Medical Affairs, was going to had envisaged this massive transformation effort, where a lot of the decentralized functions, they were looking to consolidate at the global levels and truly to make it into a world-class organization in the global medical affairs space. They did this. They realized that just their the PhDs, MDs, all the people who work in the team who are great at what they do were not necessarily the people who have done.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. A couple of people are commenting that your microphone may not be super clear. Are we getting are you using your headphone mic, or is it maybe coming through a different? Okay.
But let me see if is this better?
It sounds about the same to me. Is there?
Yeah. Let me see.
Let's see what the people are saying.
Is this a little better?
I can hear you clearly, but there's just a little bit of an echo. But
maybe it's a little bit of an echo that is the problem.
Maybe if you try to unplug the microphone, and you just use the inbuilt audio like within your computer, maybe that might help.
Well, he's
okay. Let's try
also
that.
using it for headphones too.
Well, let me see if I can just quickly change that in a second.
I can hear you better now, Sachin. I'm not sure if it's just me.
Is this better now?
Oh, this is really good. Now you
Yeah,
sound
way
like
better.
a total professional.
That's way better.
There you go. All right. So this.
What did you do? That's
It was. I shall educate you right away. So it was picking up another microphone. My WebEx has been set up to pick up my headphone mics, but the Zoom probably decided not to go.
Yes.
Yeah, this is perfect.
That's right. So my apologies.
Much better.
But.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you to all for raising it up, because we didn't realize. So good job, everybody. Sachin, thanks so much. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Please back to where you were. Take it away.
All right. So thank you again. So when the Global Medical Affairs was going to go through a transformation at Merck, they realized that they needed to get an organization, a small group of people basically set up who would actually know how to manage the transformation, right? I mean, we had we have extremely knowledgeable, extremely talented people, who are, highly educated, running their functions within the medical affairs. But when you're talking about a transformation, it's a different thing. So if it's like saying, I have an office right now which is humming and working well, but now I need to go to a completely different office. It's an expanded, bigger focus of office, and I want to run the office over there while this office is running. And obviously, people don't necessarily know how you get to this new office, right? I mean, how do you sort of set up the office space and all of that kind of stuff, right? So that the optimum kind of efficiencies are achieved in the new place. So the transformation to me is a little different from taking a function and improving it, right? So that's where the notion of having a small group came in. So I was lucky enough to sort of build my own team from scratch, and I staffed it largely with people from outside the industry, not just from the pharma industry, only because the experiences gained across different industries I felt would give that rigor which was needed for this. So while project management and program management was the key focus, which we needed to have in place, we also needed to have this notion of facilitation of problem solving and skills of that kind, which we needed to have in the strategy realization office. And to your point, Mark, our goals, our measurement, if you will, was not on how successful the project was, but how successful the transformation was, right? So, and the transformation itself then had a bunch of benefits. Again, a concepts which we brought in from various places, management consulting, where that, benefits management, for example, or benefits tracking, and the notion that benefits are not something which are realized only at the end of the project, or benefits could be realized during the project, and in some cases are realized way after the project ends, was something which was an education which needed to happen. So this sort of looking at this things from a different perspective was one of the things which helped us and sort of helped us to carve out where our success would be, not in the fact that we executed in time and in budget, which is an esoteric kind of an easy enough thing to do in my sense. In the sense, it's something which is important and necessary to be done, but it's not something which necessarily would measure the success of what this new organization was being set up for. So that was one part of the equation. The second part of the equation was to look at the portfolio in terms of the goals and the KPIs that were set out for the success. To say, global medical affairs or global medical and scientific affairs now. What are the things that it would need to show success? So there were a bunch of goals. There were things they want to measure over there and stuff like that. So what we did was, as the SRO, was to take a look at those goals, those metrics, and say how many of those things really are lend themselves to projectizable work, right? Because some things are obviously blatantly, this needs to improve from 70% to 90%. Okay, that's not necessarily something which needs a project. It probably needs operational improvement, which can come from different sources. So that doesn't need to be converted into a project. But then you look at something else and say, oh, there's a process which is needed to sort of put up the scientific and medical plan for global levels and to be done at the country level. And oh, by the way, that process doesn't exist. Now that's a project now, because you're looking at something which you're creating from scratch and saying that's something which needs that rigor and management to take that, to build a process, to put it into place, to make sure that it's managed, and the benefits from that are also understood and tracked accordingly. So that kind of a thing, when we split out, carving out the projects and programs that have the greatest impact, right? So that is the thing which we did. So the difference in my mind was that we could take what was truly at the level of the strategy, what is truly at the levels of the goals and the KPIs for the organization, and then sort of set ourselves accountable to managing those, to sort of transfer them, whether it was through projects or through other things. Obviously, things which are operational in nature were picked up by other functions, but the project management, program management functions of it, which would be needed to realize those KPIs, were something that we were measured on. So over a period of the 4 years that we have been going, 3.5 years, which we have been going through the improvements to make it into a world-class organization, that's the part which the SRO played, and that's where we were measured in terms of our success. So long-winded answer to you, Mark.
So that's an awesome illustration. Thank you, Sachin. It kind of delves into the discussions we've had in the past. So I like to use an example around driving a car, and in my past positions, I've really tried to tie portfolio objectives to specific strategic goals that the C-suite or the executives are trying to achieve. So at a previous company, for example, we had our portfolio laid out of what it was. Admittedly, it was in the R&D space, so it was an R&D focused portfolio, right? Not to be confused with other sets of projects. But I still tried to tie the individual R&D projects up to kind of what are we trying, as a company, what are we trying to achieve? What's in our strategy? So for that particular company, things like patient quality of life, things like practitioner capability, or our practitioner providers that provided the actual service that administered the treatments. What were they trying to achieve in terms of profitability, in terms of their own business growth, in some cases, in terms of their presence within their local market? They were looking to achieve a certain amount of prestige. These were all things that were in the strategy of the company. And these were all things that my portfolio could actually help with. And so what I try to do is try to draw the lines, the bridges of the things you just talked about, saying, for this particular initiative, what are the things that you're hoping to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years, and try to create a little bit of accountability there. It wasn't near as robust as what you're talking about, but I tried to draw those lines. Getting into my analogy, I think when we start talking about project to program to portfolio to strategy, and realizing that strategy, I think in some cases it comes across, in some cases as a little academic, as a little bureaucratic, and in some cases I think it sounds a little standoffish, saying, well, project management's not important. But when you're on a car journey, when you're driving your car, having where the rubber meets the road, making sure that you've got good quality tires, making sure that the tire pressure is right, making sure that you've got enough gas, making sure that you're adhering to speed limits, those are all absolutely critical, right? You take your eye off the road, you're going to get yourself in real trouble. But at the other hand, if you drive your car for 500 miles and you get out and don't know where you are, and realize that you had meant to go to the mountains for a nice family vacation because you wanted to achieve a certain amount of enjoyment for your family, and you realize you're out in the middle of the desert where no one wants to be, that's a problem too. So you need both, right? And that's why I kind of like your explanation.
Brilliant. I'm going to use this sometime else, Mark. This is a brilliant one. I love the story that you've got, because it resonated into 2-3 levels right away. I did a road trip just a couple of months ago where I actually did this 4,500 miles, and truly, if all I was doing the important things in terms of making sure that the car was right and stuff like that, but not where I was going with it, then you're right. I mean, that it would put me somewhere else rather than come back home. So I actually appreciate that. So if I can just take one little thing from that and sort of point out a small difference, right?
Please, yes.
So because this is fascinating to me, right? So there's on the one hand, you have the portfolio of what are the things that you want to do to sort of further the overall goals of the company, such as patient, maybe the well-being of the patient, and the patient is actually front and center in everything that Merck does, right? So that's one part of the equation which is there, and there are a lot of other people other than me and my group, which is basically trying to further that thing along, whether it is in terms of better engagement, whether it's better science, better communication of the science, whatever the case might be, right? So there are a lot of people who have their own thing. My job and my team's job over here is to sort of help them, where possible, to do that better, right? Now, if it is incremental, that's fine. There are ways of doing that incrementally which are easy. But if it's transformational, then it's something which definitely would come on to us, right? So it's still a function of them doing their job much better, but it's me helping them get to that point where they can do the job better. So our measurement is to sort of do that thing to get you to the point where you get to this new set of tools or new process or new whatever widget that you have. And what that entails is the change management aspect of it, right? Because people are used to doing certain things in a particular way right now. And now in the new world, they're going to have better tools, different tools, but the change of that is the challenge. So one big component of our SRO is change management, sort of getting ahead, making sure that people understand what the benefits are. And on that point, again, one small thing which I wanted to add was I actually took a lot of training. I conducted a lot of training for the people who are going to be working, the subject matter experts in the team, right? Who didn't quite come from our project management world, but I taught them project management. Why? Not to make project managers out of them, but for them to understand that, from regular examples, that these are things which are not as difficult as it sounds. Like the conventional wisdom was a particular function which you're trying to put together was 3 to 5 years is what the industry standard was. We did it in 10. I said we do it in 10 months and we did it in 11. And the reason why people looked at me at the time as if I was, somebody crazy was because, hey, this cannot be done. Did you read the memo? It takes 3 to 5 years. But helping people with sort of, understanding that there are things which you can do in parallel. There are things which you can do, sort of squeeze the timeline for things which project managers and program managers do for a living, right? That's what we do, sort of crunch times and, make things go faster. Those are the kind of things I was helping people to understand. And my favorite change management analogy always remains, it's that you might have the greatest of seeds and greatest of farming tools, but if your land is not ready to accept the seeds, you're never going to get an orchard out of it, right? So that's the thing that you work on first to make sure that, hey, the people who you're working with, they themselves are first ready to take what you're giving them so that they can move to the next step and do better for what they are measured on in terms of, maybe patient improvement for the patient and doing things for the patient. So that's kind of the place where the SRO plays in as well. So.
Yeah, no, that's very relevant. I'd like to tear into that a little bit if we could, just spend
Sure.
a moment on that. But I like how you've raised up the disciplines around project management and change management, how they're key ingredients for any initiative, whether it be transformational or otherwise. I find people sometimes like to kind of poo-poo the notion of, well, we don't need any project management for this. We're just going to get it done, to your point of just do it, right? And then very quickly from moving from just do it, they say, is it done yet? And then, of course, the question is it done yet? And then the next question is, how come they're not using it, right? Which gets into the change management, right? And so,
absolutely.
When people say we don't need any project management, we don't need any change management for this, just get it done. I turn around and say, well, project management is really just about it. If you got something to get it done and figuring out how long you need to do it, who's going to do it. You're employing that today. If you're trying to, if you're working on your house, or you are trying to put on a party or whatever, you're trying to plan your weekend, you're using project management. And oh, by the way, if that involves people and the people need to use whatever it is, they're going to appreciate whatever work you're doing, that's change management, understanding what their needs are and making sure that they adopt it, right? So, but anyway, to kind of move into I wanted to tear a little bit into what you raised around your SRO. When you said in your depiction there, you talked about helping them do their job better. I think you're talking about the medical affairs staff that are your internal clients. Is that right?
Yes,
right.
That's correct.
And so, a simple project might be just getting them a new tool, and that's fine and all. But transformationally, you're actually figuring out and then helping them move towards doing their job better, doing it differently tomorrow than they were doing it today, right? And the objectives there are that the measurement is, are they doing their job better? Do they believe they're doing their job better? But then whoever their customers are they making a difference for their customers, right? So
absolutely.
I know a lot of what you're doing is fairly sensitive and fairly internal to Merck, but if there's anything you can share in terms of kind of get into maybe any examples, or even just talking in general examples, how do you drive your team's work to get your internal clients, your medical affairs staff, to move from A to B using the transformational scope plus change management, right? but then how do you keep an eye towards how are they doing any good for their customers? How do you know that is it simply that they tell you? Do you try to survey them, or how do you apply any metrics or KPIs?
I love this. So there are a number of questions here. So let me just try to address them as best as I can. One is metrics, right? The metrics are one thing which I have a very, very strong opinion on, because you can measure almost anything and it is perfectly useless. In other words,
sure, right.
How many trainings did you do? Okay, that's a good number. We should hit 10 trainings per person per year. Okay, great. How effective was it? Did it translate into patients getting better? I mean, if that is not measured, then this number is fairly useless. I mean, obviously it has its own value in some cases, because just the doing it sometimes has some value. But I guess the point I'm making is measurement and KPIs, one can really go crazy with them, right? I mean, you could put lots of things to measure over there. And yeah, there's this sort of conventional wisdom that, hey, what you can't improve what you can't measure. Yes, but you have to be able to measure the right kind of things as well, right? So when you're looking at it from a perspective of benefits and stuff of that kind, the measurement patterns change quite dramatically. So before we embarked on this, we had a fantastic dashboard of various things that we are collecting in terms of numbers, right? Some of those numbers came from systems which we could just pull off. Some of those came because people had to actually manually enter that, whatever they needed to do, and then we would collect those metrics. So of course, there would be some variability of people who entered counted something as and somebody else not counting it. So you had a mismatch of counting as well. So even getting the right kind of measurements is sometimes challenging to start with, and then collection of that of those numbers is another part of the equation. So our focus went slightly differently, right? So we said, yeah, we have those tools which you can collect dashboards and you collect information, in some cases look for trends over there, and it's all good. And some of those we actually used for sort of building off of new things. So for example, our highly qualified PhDs, MDs, PharmDs, doctors who basically talk to medical practitioners, if they're spending more than an X amount of time doing administrative work, then it's a waste of their time, right? Because they're way too smart to do that. Now, how do you collect that information? So there was tools which we've put into place to basically get some information, and then found the variability of the work that needed to get done to make them more efficient. So this is not about efficiency in the sense of, oh, let's make machines out of them, right? Like let's just keep on getting them to do fully functional things, but to sort of truly make sure, is there something we can carve out from here which will enable them to focus on their patients and focus on their stakeholders a little better. And once we looked at that, we said, okay, this needs a change in the way we're currently even delivering this thing, right? So maybe an organization has to change a little. So we need to maybe set up something on a regional basis, and which will basically take up that kind of a function. Now, that's a great strategy in itself, but how do you make that work? So we actually facilitated a bunch of sessions around that to say, specifically, what are we going to do in the hub, for example, if you're going to have regional hubs? So what are you going to be doing in the regional hubs specifically? What can be done at the regional hubs specifically, and what has to be done at a country level or at a global level only? And then you sort of, we had a 2-day facilitated session with old-fashioned, moving stickies around and stuff, and actually got them to understand, oh, so this is what we are trying to shoot for, and this is what is going to get us the maximum bang for the buck, right? So I know I'm a little loosey-goosey on this, but because there are details here which I can't necessarily share, but this is the story of one of the things which we actually did, which was a massive success for us, and that was taking up work which was otherwise mundane administrative work which was being done by highly qualified people, and freeing them up to do their science a little better. Now, did they use that time to do something better for the constituencies or not, is the second question that you want to ask, right? So benefits are going to be measured in waves, if you will, right? The first set of measurements was, this was the time that you were spending on this. Are you spending lesser time on it now? That's the first level of measurement. Second level of measurement then starts, okay, great. Now that you have that much more time, are you using it in the kind of thing that you're supposed to use? So do you have the right kind of thing? So my point here is KPIs and measurements are not a once and done thing. They can and probably should be done in the ways, because otherwise you couldn't get to the second question without the first question being answered, right? So the first line of measurement has to be done first. Then you roll out the second line of measurement, where the first line of measurement almost becomes irrelevant, and then you move on to sort of evolve into the different KPIs that you're finally shooting for in terms of improvement, right?
I love that. Yeah, that's an I've been in that situation before, and you know, creating waves of your KPIs, evolving your KPIs are so critical to your point, because yes, as you're executing your initiative, your eyes are eye on the prize, just trying to, in your case, as an example, if your initiative is really just trying to free up time for your constituents, for your internal clients, and get them out of the mundane, and maybe, you know, take over some of the more tactical work, or find some kind of another set of resources or automation, whatever it is.
Yes.
But I think that's an excellent example of a great KPI, because reality, that's all most of us are really trying to do when you think about it in the transformational space, in the PMO space, whatever have you. We're trying to free up some of our critical resources and create more of it. And, you know, we can always go hire more resource, but being able to internally free up more of that resource by automation, by, you know, whatever have you, I think that's a great KPI. But yes, once you free up that resource time, that critical strategic resources time, how do you use it? And are you using it strategically and effectively? And is it doing any good? That's a more complex KPI, but you can't answer the second KPI until you answer the first one. So I love that's excellent. You know, evolving your KPIs as you go is crucial. I agree. We have Katie. I think we've got about 13 minutes left, if I'm correct. I thought maybe Sachin and I could probably go on for the next 4 hours and have a really engaging conversation. But and we would love to do that. But some people may have a couple questions, and I wanted to pause here to give people an opportunity. If people do have questions, and we can jump in now. If not, Sachin and I can continue going for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, because this was, I actually wasn't even looking at the time, because I really was enjoying the presentation. So thank you both. It's really lovely to actually have a moderator who is a professional from the field. But yeah, I would like to ask if anyone wants to pop in, unmute yourself, and ask any questions, maybe, you know, to make the most out of Mark's and Sachin's presence. So feel free to do so. If not, there is a chat box.
Questions on KPIs, on objectives. How do you link, you know, project outcomes up to your strategic objectives?
How do you do it, Mark? Please tell us.
How do you get an SRO set up? How do you evolve your operation from strict project management all the way up to strategic realization? Any
I
thoughts
think you asked yourself questions, so maybe you can give us answers as well.
No, I'm just trying to stimulate thought here.
I have a question.
Mark.
I do have a
Estelle,
question.
I think we've got a hello.
Hi, I'm just wondering, can you share some of the challenges in establishing an SRO? Because I know that's new in terms of moving from a PMO to SRO. So I'm just curious of some of the challenges you face.
So I think that's a great question. I think because the first thing which was most important was not just to sort of change the focus of what we were doing, but change the name, and that was done very, very deliberately, because PMOs are something which, you know, people have perceptions of depending on where they have been in the past. So one of the biggest challenges to me was to make sure that people saw that we were doing something different, and the focus was different, the intent was different. So that was the first challenge which we were working on in parallel, to sort of get people to understand. When I say in parallel to continue executing on the strategy that we're supposed to be doing, is to get to people to understand that there were benefits of doing it the way we're doing it. So incremental benefits, so that came from road shows, that came from discussions, that came from trainings which I had set up. I remember the earlier days of when there was a huge amount of skepticism, which people were looking at us for, because the numbers that we were throwing at them in terms of how quickly things could be done, or how we could sort of have the benefits realized in a particular way. There were doubters, there were disbelievers over there. So it was a function of working with them, and it honestly took me a little longer than I had expected. But that was the perception challenge which I had to sort of steer in the direction of, here's a different organization with a different set of goals from what you might otherwise have been thinking about. And the difference over here for PMOs and SROs, the slide probably is talks about that difference to some extent. But what is most important over here is, once people, the doubters, the disbelievers are there to start with, once they do turn around, it's a very, very powerful force. Actually, the last maybe year and a half or so of our existence has been extraordinary because of the kind of things that we were able to achieve in terms of the momentum that we now have behind us from the people who we are trying to help, right? Earlier, the challenges was to sort of say, hey, wait a minute, we know our function well. Who are you? You don't even know what we do, right? And oh, you guys understand what we are trying to do, and enough to sort of try to improve it in a particular way that makes sense using our help. Oh, you're here to help us to do our job better, and then it becomes something then the wind in the sails are really favorable. So I think that was to be the big challenge and the big success once we managed to turn that around.
Yeah, thank you both. Thank you, Athas, for a wonderful question. Hopefully that kind of answers what you needed to hear. If not, feel free to reach out. I'm not sure if there's anyone else who'd like to, or maybe Mark, you had great questions.
Yeah, I can. Please, anyone just jump right in. I'll go ahead and ask another question here, but please don't hesitate. If you've got something, you can type it on the chat or just unmute yourself, please. But Sachin, I want to kind of key on one point that you mentioned. I want to get your thoughts on it. I've sometimes highlighted how we as a practice, as project program portfolio and SRO professionals, we sometimes have put ourselves in a corner and done this to ourselves. Many executives that I've run across think of the disciplines that we bring, the capabilities that we bring, they see it as, in some cases, unneeded bureaucracy. And to my point I made earlier, we don't need any of that because it's bureaucratic. And when I say that we've kind of done it to ourselves, I could see a question coming in. I'll finish this and I'll hand it off to Mithun. Thank you, Mithun, for your question. In some cases, we have created PMOs to be more just monolithic data producers and not try to link anything to any real objectives or really achieving a strategy. And I think to your point that the surprise that you heard is indicative when people said, oh, you're really interested in helping me achieve my career goals or my objectives and improving how I do my work. You're not just here to force me to fill out a bunch of forms and fill out a bunch of project plans and schedules and dump a bunch of issues on me and a bunch of logs. You're actually here to help me kind of improve my world. That kind of surprise I find is not rare. People, and I think it's sad, but I think it's a call to order for us as professionals within this practice that we need to kind of spread the word and really work hard to actually do help and do improve people's lives of our internal clients, not just saddle them with a bunch of paperwork. But I thought I'd leave it to you to answer real quickly before I hand it back.
Sure, just one quick thing on that one. So about maybe it was about 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, I was heading a PMO for a company. I had about 150 project managers in that. And one of the things which we were trying to do was to sort of whip it up into a true PMO, into whatever that meant at the time, right? And literally in the war room that we had set up for ourselves, I wrote in big with a chalk, I wrote a thing over there saying, no increased work. That was the thing, right? So the first principle of whatever we were doing was we will not increase the work on the people that we are trying to support, right? So if anything, you should be able to take that out of the equation. If that is one of the sort of strategies of making sure that you can get things to work, I think people's respect for you sort of goes up a touch because of the fact that they're like, at least he's not trying to increase my already busy schedule. That's one part of which I felt is very, very important. The other, and I'm just going to throw, it's a slightly different point, but it kind of brings back to this one. When we started the SROs and the transformation piece, there were obviously projects in flight at the time, right? And I had asked people to say, let's do this 2-slide project charter, which I just want you guys to be doing for your project. And they're like, yeah, we already, our projects have been doing it for the last few months, and we already have the charter. I said, no, if you don't mind, just look at what I've got. And just a few things I want you to think through is, what are the deliverables, what's in scope, what's not in scope, what are the benefits, and usual kind of just few questions over there. And then we had a facilitated session, a day-long session, where all the teams actually got to talk about what they're doing. And one of the biggest things was, we've done more work on this exercise than we have done on the project so far. And the point here is the exercise of planning is more important than the plan itself. They hadn't done the exercise of planning to start with. And I think that is one of the things which was a place where the penny dropped and said, damn, if you could think this through a little, it would become a different animal altogether. We didn't just get started and say, let's try to get these things done as a set of tasks. No. There's a purpose for this. There's a reason why we're doing this. What specifically are we hoping to accomplish from this? There are things which we are trying to make sure that we help people understand that, and then it becomes easier for them to sort of say, that's what I need to do to make this successful, not just a bunch of tasks.
Yeah, no, spot on. One of my favorite quotes is, plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. I find is so true time and time again. Those muscles around planning are critical. I want to touch on Mithun's question, and then we've got another couple of questions that have come in. So Mithun's asking about KPIs evolving over time. Back to the conversation you and I just had, Sachin, around an example. Let me touch on the example we talked about just to kind of bring it back to light here. You laid out an example of where you were tracking objectives of freeing up practitioners' time. You have some internal consultants, internal clients, your medical affairs staff, and your objectives in one of your examples was freeing up their time. Can you, I don't know, and I know some of this may be internal and sensitive, but is there any examples or even general examples you could show where once you freed up their time, what were the conversations like about how they're using that time, the next wave of KPIs in terms of how they're using that time? Can you give any specifics on that?
I'm going to have to pass on that question. There's a reason for that, because I may end up saying things which I don't want to say. But suffice it to say that time frame difference, first of all, was already shown in terms of, hey, now with this new organizations being set up at the regional level, for example, so obviously starting off with surveys, right? So start with a survey as one of the starting point, and the second survey at the other point, and surveys are good when you don't have quantifiable information. It's more touchy-feely, right? Because how well do you think you're doing, kind of thing is not the same thing as saying, specifically how many numbers of things are there. But there were other data, hard data, which was coming in from things like CRMs and from other internal systems. And
right.
We used to do time tracking mechanisms to sort of say specifically how are we doing on these, and the numbers had dropped once we had new organizations. So that was something hardcore numbers check, which comes from internal systems, from wherever. And there also, it was important for people to be guided and educated on specifically what do you put in some of these systems, right? Because it's garbage in, garbage out at times, where information that you're putting, if you're classifying it as X and it should be classified as Y, you get a different set of results, right? So sort of defining what X should look like and what Y looks like. So when you say, if I met this particular person, it was called an X kind of a meeting, and if I just decided to set up a meeting, it was a Y kind of a meeting. Just making sure people understood what the difference was over there. That's the kind of thing which also helped to get the numbers right. But rest of it, I also recognize that we're kind of 1 minute away from the end of time over here, Mark. So I may not be able to get into this at this point, but Mithun, I can certainly answer that question offline for you. If you could
Oh, no
share.
worries. I wanted to kind of try to explore it a little bit further from it. Then I think we did that. So thank you. Oh, thank you for moving to your conclusion slide. Thank you. Katie, I'm okay to go past a few minutes. I don't know if everyone else is. Sachin, do you have a conflict? Are you okay to keep going?
I have literally got 5 minutes more, but I'd be happy to stick on for 5 minutes on this one. Let me just take a quick sort of conclusion part over here. The most important thing is not every PMO needs to be an SRO, right? Because both have their own users. So it's not as if just calling a PMO an SRO is going to make it so, and neither should you want it always to be an SRO, because the PMO has its own function and it's a good one, right? We already talked about the differences between them. So if efficiency and stuff of that kind are the goals that you have, PMOs absolutely are the way to go, right? Because they do have this way of collecting information, reporting information, looking for issues, looking for things which you can commonly manage, looking for dependencies, cross-project dependencies. All that good stuff is managed within well-run PMOs, and that's just absolutely necessary. But there are other things which you're looking for, and especially around the transformational side, it's more relevant where you may need to have an SRO. So there are companies which are moving towards a more strategic direction. There was, I believe, an article which came out by Gartner in 2019, which talked about moving into the SROs or the gradual shift towards SROs, but not necessarily as a different word in itself. It's just the way you do things. So I'll leave the slide over here and you can look at it. But the one big thing which I see, which is a difference over here, and it has been more and more, is this line: facilitation and change management skills. I think that is one of the key differentiators that at least I saw when we moved from a conventional PMO model to an SRO model over here, PMOs that I had done in the past and SROs which I did over here, where the accent on the change management, facilitation of the change was much more than just executing the project management from a project planning perspective, a tracking perspective, issue management, risk management perspective, right? So.
Excellent.
Right.
So
yeah, thank you both. I can actually see there are a few questions still from Vikas, Buchel. I'm not sure if anyone else had any questions, but I can actually see that there are quite many people leaving. I guess they have other meetings to attend. But what I can suggest, if you both would be happy to do so, I can post the questions online on our PPM workout platform, and you're both members. So if you could, and you will find the time, maybe we can actually answer them online at the platform and kind of start a discussion there.
Absolutely.
If you'd be happy.
I'd be happy to do that.
that sounds great, Katie. That'd be good.
Yeah, perfect. I don't want to keep, both of you. I guess you've got other things to do as well on your agenda. I've still got meetings happening. I can see other people as well. So I would just like to, say a few last things. Thank you both, Mark and Sachin, so very much. This is incredible. This is exactly, I've got chills saying this, but this is exactly what we want to do. Bring professionals, experts together to chat and discuss exactly what you've been doing. Mark, hands down, an incredible moderator. Sachin, an incredible speaker. And this is all, people are actually saying thank you and thanks everyone. Need to drop off to a meeting, to a call. Love this idea. Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, this was really wonderful. And we're going to be back tomorrow with another online webinar. This session was being recorded, still is recorded. And I'm going to post it on our YouTube channel so you can rewatch it and share it with your peers and colleagues. So if you, Mark and Sachin, would like to say, last few words.
Just one last thing I do want to say is, firstly, thank you to Y Summits and Katie, to you for pulling us together. But Mark, it truly was a pleasure. I mean, every time I chat with you, it's something new. I get ideas. I need to think about certain things. Your experience, your expertise, and your ability to sort of guide the questions is brilliant. So thank you so much. It was an excellent experience for me as well, working with you.
Yeah, thank you, Sachin. I call it oxygenating the brain. It's really been a really engaging conversation. I thank you for that. And yes, thank you to Y Summits for providing the platform, and thank you for your time. Please give us feedback on how this session went. Give us on the topics, on the technology, on the session. If it's too short, too long, people give us your thoughts. So we'd love to hear it on the Y Summits on PPM workouts. So send us your thoughts.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, exactly as you both said, and I feel like this was love at first sight for both of you. So maybe I'm gonna keep you in mind for our upcoming conferences, so you can actually provoke one another even more professionally, of course.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
thank you so
again,
much, everyone.
This was pleasure, and yeah, please come back, give us a feedback. As Mark mentioned, chat offline. The platform, it's there, everyone's there, so please join. And thank you so much. I'm really grateful to be able to host these sessions with professionals like Mark and Sachin. So thank you again. Everyone's clapping. Thank you.
I know.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank
Have
you
a great
again, and
day.
have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.
Bye now.